Mr. Pearson himself.
Okay. My understanding, it's a limited one, I'll grant you, is that on the outside of the area that's been cleared, there's been space for what's called a circulation road. Is that accurate?
I'm not
If
sure.
you know.
I don't. I could look at the plans.
That you don't know personally.
No.
Were you involved in any of the interior discussions at Pearson? Positive findings for asbestos?
I was not.
Were you involved in any email discussions regarding that issue?
There probably was.
Okay. How did you find out?
I believe our facilities director had notified me.
Right. Were you involved with conversations about telling the EP?
I was not.
Do you know how long before DEP knew? Pearson knew that there was asbestos at the site?
I do not.
Is it fair to say that in the year since you first visited the site till now, it's been removed on site, taken down?
Yes.
Why was that done?
The trees were removed so the electric lines could be brought in, and I believe the rest was just cleaning up the overgrown shrubbery that was grown in.
All right. Are there plans to take down more trees?
I'm not aware.
Was there ever a plan that laid out what trees needed to come down and where they were going to come down from?
I'm not aware of it.
Does the plan for this site include the possibility of bringing machinery for the PennDOT project out onto this site as a marshalling area?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, every construction site has an area for marshaling the materials and machines necessary to perform the contract. That's what I would call marshaling or marshaling site. Does that make sense to you?
No.
Okay. Is any of the equipment necessary for the Turnpike project located near your at the site at this quarry?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is any of the product necessary, other than what's at the quarry naturally, any of the product necessary for the Turnpike contract ever brought to this site?
Not that I'm aware of.
Are you aware of any plans for either of those two issues to change in the future?
I'm not.
Would you agree that as part of the operation of the quarry, you'll need visits from repair trucks?
Yes.
Would you need deliveries?
Yes.
Who does the blasting for you?
I believe it's main drilling and blasting.
What do they bring on site to do that?
Not sure of exactly what they bring on site, but they bring a drill, and I'm sure they bring blasting material.
More than one vehicle?
I'm not aware.
Have you been present when they blasted in sites you've been at?
No,
So you don't know how many trucks or vehicles they would need?
I do not.
Do you know how many oil delivery trucks would visit the site per week?
It would depend on the amount of asphalt you're making.
So if you're making the numbers that you testified to on direct examination, how many deliveries a week? Average.
Generally, you use one tanker load of oil for 500 tons of mix.
So can you estimate how many tanker tractor trailers are coming per week with oil?
Possibly 4 to 8 loads.
So that'd be 16 truck trips.
Correct.
Do you know how they would access the site?
That is my understanding through Rockhill Road.
Coming from which direction?
guess they would be coming from 309 area.
All right. Does Pearson have a contract for the delivery of oil to this site if the asphalt plant goes up?
We do not.
Do you know of a vendor in the area that could potentially bring oil to this site?
I don't.
Have you been involved in any conversations of what efforts Pearson could take to minimize the impact to the surrounding neighbors
No, not too much.
at all?
Some.
Well, I've heard a number of times from you tonight, from Mr. Pearson personally, that you're all committed to being good neighbors. So I want to know what conversations you had about what it's going to take to be good neighbors at this site.
With the neighbors,
Correct. No, with yourself, interior, in the company. What conversations, what specifics have you talked about, or possible ways to be good neighbors to these folks?
I can't remember the exact conversations that were had.
Have any conversations been held?
I'm sure there have been.
No, that you've personally been involved with?
I'm sure there was.
And what was discussed?
Keeping down the dust, keeping the street clean. There was, whenever we hauled equipment in there, we would provide an escort for the truck, escorting the loads in and out.
Is that anything different than any other site you've worked at?
That's the only site we escort low beds or any equipment in and out.
Anything else?
I don't recall right now.
You said that you've attended to complaints when they've come to your attention. Were you aware that there was a complaint to DEP about mud out on the road?
Yes,
Okay. Were you the person in charge of addressing that complaint with DEP?
I was contacted by the DEP.
And what did you direct to be done?
I directed Jim Allen to physically go out and attempt to scrape up the mud that was left on the road.
Was that done satisfactorily?
I believe so.
Did DEP direct you to come back out and wash it off the road?
Not that I'm aware of.
Didn't they direct you to do some additional work after your first attempt at clearing the road?
I don't believe so, no.
Were you directly involved with communication with DEP about follow-up on that issue?
Yes.
Who'd you talk to?
I talked with Michael Landini.
Any paperwork to support the content of those conversations that you had?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Are you aware of machinery being screened on the interior of sites and other quarry operations, crushing operations, asphalt operations?
I'm not following your question.
Have you ever seen screening on the interior of a site around crushing operations?
What do you mean by screening?
In the air, sound buffers constructed around the equipment on site. Not buffering on the edge of the site, but interior screening where they have 2 or 3 stories of sound buffering built around the piece of equipment. Have you ever seen that?
No.
You don't think it exists in your industry that you know of?
It's possible.
I just want to know what you know. If you don't know, that's fine. You don't know? That's all I have right now. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Freed?
Thank you. Good evening. How are you?
Good.
You're here tonight as Vice President of Pearson Materials, correct?
That is correct.
And Pearson Construction is a separate entity, correct?
That is correct.
And you don't have any officership or directorship or anything having to do with that company, correct?
I do not.
The applicant here in front of the zoning hearing board is Pearson Materials, correct?
Yes.
Call your attorney asking you at the outset regarding the turnpike contract. Remember him asking you questions about that?
Yes.
Pearson Materials doesn't have a contract with the turnpike, correct?
That is correct.
That's Pearson Construction, correct?
Yes.
So the applicant here tonight is not the one with the contract with the turnpike, correct?
That is correct.
And Pearson Construction could get their asphalt from anybody, correct?
I'm sure they can get it elsewhere, not just anybody.
Okay, that's fair. So they could get it elsewhere besides Pearson Materials, correct?
Yes.
And it's it's a lot of volume, right, of asphalt that's going to be used for the turnpike job, correct?
It is. I'm not sure of the actual tonnage, but yes.
And generally, when you're dealing with high volumes, if you're going out to purchase a product, the more volume, the better deal you're going to get, the lower the price per volume is going to be, right?
Normally.
So, given the volume here, you would expect that Pearson Construction could probably get a pretty good deal on the asphalt if they had to buy it, correct?
Objection, irrelevant for purposes of these proceedings. He's already established that Pearson Construction is not part of the proceedings, it's Pearson Materials, and they're proposing to produce asphalt for Pearson Construction and others.
I'm going to overrule it. You can answer that.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Pearson Construction could get a pretty good deal on the asphalt for the turnpike project, correct?
Yes, it's possible.
Do you know if Pearson Construction has sought any bids for asphalt?
I do not know.
You mentioned that, and I apologize, I know some of this was covered. Just want to make sure the record's clear. Pearson Materials has 3 quarries, correct?
Yes.
And how many of those quarries have asphalt plants?
1.
So that would mean 2 of the 3 quarries have no asphalt, correct?
Correct.
And Pearson Materials also has 3 asphalt plants, correct?
In New Jersey, yes.
How about in Pennsylvania? How many asphalt?
No.
Okay. Of those 3 asphalt plants in New Jersey, how many of them are at quarries?
None of them are.
You were asked some questions regarding Exhibit A9, and I believe you answered regarding some foundations that you believe you saw for an asphalt plant at the site when you first were there in December of 2017 or January of 2018. You recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing any foundations for a drum dryer building?
Not that I'm aware of.
How about for a bag house?
Not that I can definitely say was a bag house foundation.
Do you know if the type of asphalt plant you believe you saw foundations for was a drum mix plant or a batch plant?
I do not.
Do you know what type of asphalt plant was supposedly there previously?
I do not.
No. You talked about the fact, and I know there were also some questions on this, that of all the stone that's generated or to be generated at the Rockhill Quarry, only 20% is going to be used for asphalt, correct?
Roughly, yes.
So that means 80% is going to be used as stone, right?
Yes.
and that stone is going to have to be trucked off the site, correct?
That is correct.
So, regardless of whether there's an asphalt plant, well, straighten one of the benefits, I believe you said, of having an asphalt plant at the quarry is a reduction in truck traffic, correct?
That is correct. The cost of the trucks bringing.
I'm sorry?
It would be the cost of extra trucks bringing stone in is a big benefit of it.
So it's not a benefit to the community by reducing truck traffic, correct?
It can be.
Okay. So if we're talking about a reduction in truck traffic, regardless of whether there's an asphalt plant at the site or not at the site, at least 80% of that stone is being trucked off-site, correct?
Yes.
And that's the vast majority of the stone being generated, right?
Yes.
So even if there's an asphalt plant at the site, you're still going to have a vast majority of truck traffic taking stone off the site, correct?
Yes.
And if there's an asphalt plant at the site, you're only going to see a reduction of that truck traffic by up to 20%, correct?
It's around 20%.
And in fact, that's not actually even going to reduce the truck traffic by 20% because if you have asphalt at the property, you're going to need trucks to take that off as well, correct?
Yes.
So you're going to have, instead of trucks taking off stone for that 20%, you're going to have trucks taking off asphalt, correct?
Yes.
So you're going to end up with pretty much the same truck traffic, right?
Yes, unless the plant is located somewhere within the vicinity if you had another asphalt plant that you were supplying.
I don't understand your answer. Can you explain that?
No, it wouldn't make sense.
Okay. You mentioned that if the asphalt plant is located at the quarry, there are going to be times based on contract that the asphalt plant's going to have to operate in the evenings, correct, through the night?
It is correct.
And trucks will be coming in and out of the site to pick up the asphalt through the night, correct?
That is correct.
And I think you estimated that that can maybe happen, you estimated on average maybe 20 or 30 times a year?
Possibly, yes.
What would be the maximum that would occur?
I don't know what the max could be. Depends on how much work there is. It's an open-ended question.
So the max could be 365 days, correct?
Not really, not 365 days, but
300 days?
it's generally not normal.
But it's possible, right? There's no upper limit, right?
Yes,
So 300 days is possible.
yes, possible but not likely.
You mentioned asphalt going from the asphalt plant into a truck before it's taken off. How does the asphalt plant how does the asphalt get from the asphalt plant to the truck?
It's loaded from a silo. The truck pulls underneath the silo, and there's gates that open up and drops into the truck.
What's the distance between the truck bed and the bottom of the silo that releases the asphalt?
I'm not sure the exact heights, might be 4 to 6 feet possibly.
But it's fair to say that it's an open air, it's not a closed process, it's a process that's open to the air as the asphalt's moving from the plant into the plant, correct?
Yes.
I believe you mentioned that you're aware that there was some soil and erosion work being done at the site in 2018?
Yes.
And are you aware that that work was done because the Conservation District determined that the facility in Pearson was in violation of soil and erosion requirements?
I'm not aware of that.
Do you know why the soil and erosion work was being conducted?
No, I believe it was under direction of DEP's, to the best of my knowledge.
Do you know if DEP found any violations of the soil and erosion requirements in 2018?
I'm not aware of it.
As vice president, who do you answer to in your chain of command?
I answer to Richard.
And who answers to you in your chain of command? What employees answer to you? What are their titles?
Generally, the operations manager generally answers to me. Salespeople answer to me.
Is there another vice president that's at your level where other subordinates would answer to them, or does everybody answer to you?
I guess in the end, everyone answers to me, but
So you're the only vice president of Pearson Materials, correct?
that is correct.
And if there was a organizational chart, the line would go from Mr. Pearson to you, and then there'd be a bunch of boxes underneath you that all the lines would go to you, correct?
Eventually.
So when you say you don't know, and someone else is handling it, it means that you don't know what your subordinates are doing?
Not at all times.
Something like a DEP violation or a Conservation District violation would be something that would be raised to your level?
Not normally.
Mr. Kraft may have asked you this question. There was some ground clearing and tree clearing that was done on the main entrance by Quarry Road. You're aware of that?
Yes.
Who did that clearing?
I believe it was Richard Pearson Jr.
Himself?
Yes.
And then after the area was cleared, you're aware stones were placed on the area?
I seen it there, yes.
Do you know who placed the stones there?
I do not.
You were also asked, and the good news is I am coming to the end. You were asked some questions about the asbestos at the site. You recall that?
Yes.
You're aware that there was some sampling that found asbestos at the site, correct?
That is correct.
Were you present when that sampling occurred?
I was not.
Were you notified when the results came back showing that asbestos was present?
I was.
And when was that? When were you notified?
I don't recall the exact date.
Do you know if it was in November?
I don't remember.
And what happened after, what did you do or say after you were informed?
I was informed there was some asbestos found in a piece of rock on site, and that they were having it sent out to be retested to make sure that it wasn't a false positive or something, that it was actually some sort of asbestos.
Was it, and when, do you know when the retest occurred?
December sometime, I don't know the exact date.
And what did the retest find?
I believe it found that there was asbestos in it.
So this piece of rock actually was tested twice, is that correct?
I'm not aware. To the best of my knowledge, I would say yes, it was probably tested twice. Not familiar with how the test is done. Is it a piece of the rock that's tested?
Well, but it's fair, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it was done.
So it's fair to say that there was a test that showed asbestos, and then there was a retest that showed asbestos, correct?
That is correct.
Prior to the test that found asbestos, were you aware of the presence of asbestos in the quarry?
I was aware that there was some naturally occurring asbestos, and early on, the DEP made us test before we were allowed to blast.
How did you become aware of the naturally occurring asbestos?
I believe I was informed by Kurt Mitchell of it.
And when was that? When did you first become aware of the naturally occurring asbestos?
It would probably be early 2018 sometime.
And how did Kurt Mitchell become aware of the asbestos?
I'm not sure.
Why was it brought to your attention?
You've just given me information that they would have to be testing it before they were allowed to blast.
Were any precautions taken, knowing that there was naturally occurring asbestos at the quarry, were any precautions taken to minimize the impact of that asbestos getting out? to the
Objection,
quarry?
there's been no testimony that he knew that there was naturally occurring asbestos at the quarry. That's not his testimony.
He just said it.
Yeah, I
That's
just.
not what he testified. He
Well, wait,
testified.
the question I think that's on the table is, were there any precautions taken with respect to the asbestos? Is that right?
Yeah.
You can answer that.
Not that I'm aware of. The only ones, just knowing that we had to test it before they would allow us to blast.
Between January of 2018 and November of 2018, how many blasts occurred at the quarry?
I'm not sure.
Do you have a ballpark number?
Maybe 20.
And what other kind of rock removal or what other types of activity was taking place to mine the rock?
They would do some hammering.
Anything else?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then once the rock was taken, it would go to the crushers, is that right?
Yes.
And those portable crushers, they're not enclosed, correct?
That is correct.
I'll try and finish up quick. I know. This will be the last line. The asphalt plant, well, strike that. The crusher that's proposed, 3 crushers that are proposed to be installed at the facility. How are they going to be constructed?
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, how, I mean, are they going to be brought in pieces? Is it brought in fully constructed?
No, they'll be brought in pieces and erected.
Okay, and then they're not going to be mobile, correct?
That is correct.
So how are they set in place on the ground?
It's my understanding they're on a concrete pad.
Okay, and are they anchored into that pad somehow?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
They just sit there on a pad?
That's what I understand.
Okay. So if someone was strong enough, they could actually lift up the crusher and move it.
Depending on how strong they are, but the pad would generally be pretty heavy to keep it stable.
But it's not anchored into the pad. Is that your testimony? It's not anchored into the pad?
No, it's anchored into the pad.
Okay, so how is it anchored into the pad?
It's probably drilled and bolted.
And on the asphalt plant, how is that constructed? Is that brought in whole or is that built at the site?
No, that's brought in pieces as well.
Okay, and then how is that put in place? Is that also on a concrete pad?
No, that's constructed on it's got wheels on it. It's a portable plant.
The asphalt plant?
Yes.
Okay. Is that going to be anchored in place?
No.
Is the asphalt plant going to be moved?
It can be.
Is the plan to move the asphalt plant?
None that I'm aware of.
Are you aware, and forgive me, I thought I heard prior testimony on the fact that the asphalt plant was going to be placed on existing foundations for the prior asphalt plants. Did I misunderstand that?
No, that's correct.
So with its wheels and its mobility, it's going to be placed on that prior foundation?
There was a concrete foundation there, yes, a pad.
So it's going to be placed on the concrete pad, correct?
Yes.
All right, that's all I have.
That you're right here one.
One line of questioning. I didn't say one question, I said one line. Right.
No, we're going to stop here tonight. Okay. All right, that's going to be it for tonight, based on the fact that it's approximately 9:30 or a little after, and we need to be out of the building. So our next meeting is February 25th.
Hang on a second. Is this what that's going to come back to the other parties? You have a chance to ask them questions?
Yeah. The next. What will happen at the next proceeding is anyone else who has party status will be first to be able to come up and ask questions of this witness. The zoning hearing board members will also be given an opportunity to ask questions, and then if Mr. Gunlock has redirect, we'll get into that. But the next meeting, February 25th, and it will be here at Bucks County Community College at 6 o'clock. So we'll see you then.
It's colder. It's 0 outside.